Alrighty, so today we are doing a how to install a 4-inch stroke limiter on an 1165V. For your stroke limiter, you got two different parts. We have the collar that sits on the rod and also the plate that sits for the valve handle as well. You'll need two tools. It could be a 9/16 ratchet and a 9/16 wrench. You could use two 9/16 wrenches as well, but 9/16 is the only size you'll need. So installing this option is pretty quick. I would figure it'd take about 4 minutes once you get good at it, but most people leave it on in most cases. But first step you'll do is you want to bring this knife down to mid-stroke. So go ahead, fire it up. And from there, turn it off. Now, keep in mind that if you're going to try to start it, it's going to try to auto return. So keep that in mind when you get it started next time. First step you'll do is you're going to install this collar. Now, we have some nuts and lock washers, so make sure that those get fastened back onto it. And some people have asked us and said, well, why do we need a collar for this design? And the main reason is, and it's the only reason, is we are using this valve up here for a dual purpose. We're using it to run the knife up and down as a splitting function, and we're also using it to run the lifter as well, which, if you have a lifter and you want a stroke limiter, the collar is required to make sure that lifter works properly with the stroke limiter. So you're going to go ahead, take your collar. It's going to go around the base of the rod. Make sure that there is no crud, dirt, gravel, that kind of stuff, dust left in that rod. And you will simply go ahead and clamp this collar around the base of the rod. Now it's very important to make sure that the collar is in line with the knife. We do not want it swiveled or sideways. That way if wood comes up, it's going to catch the edge of the collar, so we want it in line with the knife. Very important. And from there, you can simply take your hardware, spin it on there finger tight. Okay, when it's finger tight, you can go ahead, take your ratchet and a wrench, tighten the nut. Now I'm going to start by just snugging them. I don't need to go crazy tight initially. Okay, and before I get too tight, I'm going to just make sure it's perfectly aligned. And when I'm happy with my alignment, I will come back and tighten it all the way up. There we go. That's the installation of the collar. Once it's tight, it should not spin, and it will be nicely clamped around. You'll see it's flush to the cup, which is welded to the knife, and that part of the installation is complete. All right, next item on the list is to place the auto return limiter in place. Now, if you were to run the machine with just the collar on, it's going to try to retract the cylinder, and it's going to bottom out the collar but not put the valve in the neutral position. So it's very important that this piece gets installed with the collar at the same time. So first thing on the list is you'll notice there's two bolts in this here. Those two bolts can come out. They are going to be used to remount this plate, so just quickly take those out. And this small UHMW bump stop on this plate here will have to get removed and remounted onto our 4-inch limiting plate. So I'll quickly turn that loose, and all you're going to do is remove this and remount it on this plate here in the same kind of configuration it was there. Now this plate was mounted, or this UHMW stopper was mounted on this side, but when you remount the limiter, it's going to turn and go in the opposite orientation. Now these are threaded holes, so we do not need a wrench on the back side, which makes it easy. There. There. And don't need to go super tight on the UHMW, just to a good snug state, and that's where you want it to be. And assembly is complete. So now the mechanical installation is complete. It should look like this. Your collar should be in line with the knife. The UHMW should be flipped to the front side of the limiter, and everything should be nice and tight, good to go. So from here, we'll give it a quick test. Now, keep in mind that when I start this up, this is going to try to travel in the upright position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my engine to the on position. I'm going to grab my pull cord, and I'm going to hold this in the neutral position and give it a start. And from here, I'm going to slowly let this travel up, just like that. And I can test it now at speed. Looks like everything's functioning properly. Perfect. So now, if you got a log lifter, you want to test that as well. So, log lifter valve up. Might need to tick more throttle. Now what you'll see is there's a very small gap in between the stroke collar, the stroke limiting collar, and the top of the cylinder. If that gap exceeds 1/8 of an inch, we're going to want to modify that to close the gap, and I'll show you how that's done. So have a quick look here. Watch this knife go up as we raise this log lifter. So everything's functioning properly. It's homing great. It's going into its neutral position. The motor's not laboring. But I don't like how that wedge is coming up a little bit when I'm trying to raise my lifter. So we're going to give it a quick modification on our setting here. So all we have to do is, you can see there's two bolts here, and this initial plate has got some slotted holes in it. So all we're going to do is we're going to move this down a little bit so that it can come farther up to reduce the amount of gappage between our stroke limiter. And we don't need to loosen it all the way. We want it to be a little bit snug still. So you can see the valve is putting some downward pressure, so we're going to, you can see the play in it. So from here, we're going to lower it as far as we can go. And I'm going to, I can see it's currently a little bit crooked, so we are going to just very simply put a little bit of pressure on it. Just to level her out a little bit. There, that looks good. So now that we've changed that, we can just inspect it for a quick second. Everything's tight, looks good. We'll start it up. That's what we're looking for. So we want about, maybe about 50 thou, a 1/16 gap in there. We can go a little bit larger, but that's really what we want to be. And usually we set them in the factory here, so they're pretty much good to go. And that's not something that has to be done on regular installation, but it's a good thing to check. All right, so that's what's involved in getting this limiter installed. Now, usually it's a very quick process. The gappage is typically set in the factory, so it's not something that you have to concern yourself with, but check it because it makes for a smooth running machine. Keep in mind you need 2 wrenches, that 9/16 wrench and a socket, and if you don't have a socket, 2 wrenches work as well. And if you're installing it and you have any questions, give the shop a call. We got parts and service more than happy to take those questions and give you good answers in return. So other than that, happy splitting.